If you suffer with romantic obsession, you can't stop longing for someone, you're thinking about them all the time, your life and your emotions are kind of chained to this fantasy of being with them someday, even if you know they're not into you. If that's happening for you, there's a very good chance that when you were a small child, you didn't get your emotional needs met. Neglect in childhood is a huge risk factor for developing limerence later on. Now, limerence is a romantic obsession or infatuation with someone who you're not with. You're thinking about them is like an addiction, and it can kind of take over your life. And if you've gotten limerent before, you probably have some shame about the way you felt, things that you did or said, or maybe you kept it secret from other people. But you know what? Limerence, it turns out, probably has a big genetic component, and it's driven neurologically. It's most likely to happen if you were neglected in early childhood, and I'm telling you, when it strikes, limerence is so painful. So why does this happen? My letter today is from a woman who happens to be a nun, and I'll call her Sophia. She writes, "Dear Fairy, since I discovered you, I've improved so much. I can't tell you how much you're helping me, but I have a problem I'm hoping you can help me with. I've got my fairy pencil. I'm going to circle things I want to come back to, but let's read through Sophia's letter one time to see what's going on." All right. She says, "I grew up in a poor family. When I was 20 days old, my mom became very ill and wasn't able to take care of me. My father had to take me to a neighbor to be breastfed. I'm told my mother sometimes used to hit me when I was a baby. I think she had postpartum depression. Her illness lasted almost 2 years. I'm at least grateful that they told me what happened. At school, I was bullied and sexually abused by a teacher. I had no friends until I was in 5th grade, and thank God she's still my friend. Today I'm a nun, and I'm sending you this letter because I'm living through an unbelievable situation and I'm struggling. I fell in love with someone 17 years younger than me. It's not the first time I fell in love with someone. Once I fell for someone the same age as me and once with someone older, but I take my vocation very seriously and I was responsible, so nothing happened. The feelings I have now may be love or they may just be limerence. This is a man who contacted me a year ago because he needed advice around a problem he was having in his life. I talked to him and we had regular conversations and there was no problem. I saw him as a young man who needed to talk and that's it, and nothing happened in my heart. But 5 months ago, my mother died. And he became very close to me. He said that I helped him and now he was helping me. Thanks to his friendship, I didn't go into depression. Maybe 2 months ago, I became concerned about what I was feeling for him. I thought, if he's going to tell me that he has a girlfriend, I am going to cry. And a few days later, someone told me that he is seeing someone. I didn't expect what I felt in that moment. I almost cried and then changed the subject quickly so that I could prevent the tears. In my deepest heart, I said, thank God I found out about the girlfriend from someone else, which I thought would be less painful than having him tell me personally. Now, maybe 2 weeks later, he called to give me the news. I said, I'm very happy for you, and I was happy, but I wanted to end the call very soon because I felt that I was going to cry. I was happy because I thought, now that I know, all that remains is to overcome this. But it was a month ago, and it's getting worse. Like I'm having an obsession with him. It's hard for me to believe this is happening. I deleted all our conversations, but I can't stop thinking about him and waiting for a text from him. I can't help writing to him. When we started communicating, he was really responsive. He used to write to me or answer my messages right away, and he appreciated that I knew when he saw my messages. Then he began to leave me in seen, and I think that's another way of saying on read. And he answered 2 or 3 days later after I wrote to him, and he always would apologize for leaving me in seen, always in a friendly way, saying something good about me, like, I like the way you are, you're so intelligent. When I read your messages, it's like I'm hearing your voice. I became very attached to him, and I think not in a romantic way. I never imagined kissing him or something like that, but now I don't trust myself that I can cut this contact. Several times I promised to myself I wouldn't message him, and then a few minutes later I'd be texting him, and I began to wait again for his answer. It's like a curse. I feel like I'm a bottomless sack. Nothing he could say or do will fill this deep, hurtful feeling I'm living through. I'm having insomnia and anxiety, and sometimes I cry like a child. The situation is so difficult for me. Honestly, I didn't expect this to happen to me because I'm a nun and because of the difference in our age. I want to know what you think about this, and if you can give me any advice, please, I need your help. Sophia. Okay, Sophia, I do think I can help. I feel for you. Oh my goodness, how painful this is. What you told me about your childhood, it just makes so much sense that limerence would strike you. And I also take very seriously your vocation as a nun. And I feel protective of you. I worry that commenters are going to jump in and say, oh, you're having feelings about somebody. You're getting limerent because you have taken a vow of celibacy. But I would just like to point out that lots of people get limerent, and they are free to date and sleep with and marry whoever they want to. But people get limerent because of a childhood wound and unmet needs at that time. But yes, you have a challenging vocation. You're in a situation that is complicates the whole thing a little extra bit there. But because he's so much younger than you, and because your relationship began as a spiritual support or mentorship, you have ordinary complications here that any kind of relationship of this nature would have. So I'm just with you. I think you're normal. What happened to you as a child, what's happening now, it all makes so much sense. I don't think there's anything wrong with you, Sophia. And this is one of the things that happens to us. So you had said you grew up in a poor family, and when you were 20 days old, your mom was so sick she couldn't care for you, and you had to go to a neighbor to breastfeed. So as I understand it, you lived in a place rural. I know English isn't your first language. I did modify a little bit for clarity, but going off to breastfeed at a neighbor, I'm glad somebody could do that and give you that physical contact, but there's that separation from your mother who you were already bonded with at 20 days is so painful and sad. And then your mom used to hit you. To hit a baby, you have to be pretty messed up. And your conjecture that she had postpartum depression sounds quite possible, especially because it went on for 2 years and then she was back to whoever she was before. Okay, but then at school, you were bullied, you were sexually abused by a teacher, you had no friends until 5th grade. What's up with that? What happened? I wonder if that was your abandonment wound still activated. Who knows? We can always look back and try to guess, like, why am I the way I am? What caused this? But of course, we're each created differently, and you are you, and very unique and special in just how you are. And these aren't necessarily horrible things about you that you would have, that you are slow to make friends, that you fall in love even though you've taken a vow, that you're just human, and your humanity is beautiful, and I accept you. I'm so sorry you were bullied and abused by a teacher. That is something so many of us have gone through, and it just does something to you that it's very hard to talk about or address or do anything about, and then we find out later how it plays out. So today you're a nun, and I commend you for living a life of service, making that level of commitment to serve others, to try to be good, to try to have a consciousness that brings love into the world is a very noble and holy thing, and I appreciate you for that. And now you're struggling. So you fell in love with someone 17 years younger, and you didn't say how old you are, but I assume he's an adult and you're 17 years older than that, whatever that is. It's not the first time you've fallen in love before. That happens. And nothing happened with those people, but this time your feelings are so strong. So first you had a friendship with him. He contacted you. He needed advice about a problem, and you talked and had regular conversations, which is totally normal for people to talk to clergy or religious for, emotional or spiritual support. That's common. And occasionally people get feelings for each other. And the responsible thing is what you have done is restraint. So because you are in a position of authority, and also because of your vow, you have an obligation to restrain yourself, and you have, and you're asking for help. And I commend you. Well done, well done. So everything was okay, but then 5 months ago your mother died, and then you became close to him. So you say thanks to him, you haven't had a depression. But I'm going to suggest something. I'm not a therapist, but I think that limerence is like a depression. It's a depression that's twisted a little bit. It's kind of rotated around, and we have all the same emptiness, but we're coping with a terrible pain and loss with a fantasy of love with somebody who can never be. Like, limerence doesn't work on somebody who's actually with us. It can't persist, because real people who actually can be with us, you know, they just have all their annoying habits. They disappoint us. They overwhelm us. We get to have the experience of day-to-day life with them, and so we can't really have magical thinking so much around them. But in a state of grief and depression, not only because it's your mother, but because of your mother's wounding of you when you were little, what I notice is that that feeling of just being totally loved that you didn't get to have from day 20 until about 2 years old, that feeling of uncertainty, that everything being scary and you being alone in the world, that would be the feeling underneath limerence that would drive to manufacture at any cost the feeling of love, the idea of love, the idea that another person would be this side-by-side comfort to you. And I get what you mean. Limerence often doesn't have like a sexual romantic component like it does, but it's usually not about that. It's some kind of like emotional completion fantasy. If I could just be with this person and they would return my feelings, I could be fully myself, but have it not be you. And I know that feels like a terrible sacrifice, but this is how you can get back your joy and your integrity. And he's still out there in the world. You know, who knows? Maybe there's a day sometime down the road when he will be your friend again. But it's not very likely, right? Once limerence has sort of like, you know, put its claws in a relationship, it kind of ruins it. And so you can take your time about this decision if you want to, but you're asking me, I would just do it quickly. Just back off of it. Don't tempt yourself. Don't text him no matter what. Just stop the texting, because that's, right now the texting is functioning as a trigger, and you are having a neurological reflex that is triggered by contact with him and then waiting for his reply. It's a happy feeling, isn't it? Texting somebody you really like and they text you back. It's such a happy feeling. You just want more and more and more of it. I don't blame you. It's a nice feeling, but you know, and I know, that the nice feeling is like a tip of an iceberg, and the bottom of the iceberg is going to smash the ship. It could really hurt him, and it could really hurt you. So this thing about leaving you in scene or on red, and how the things are getting farther apart, that suggests to me that he senses that stuff is getting a little too close. So that's your cue. Now is the time. Now is the time to straighten this out. I love what you said here. You described limerence so well. It's like a curse. Yes, it is. It's like a curse. It's like this love for something that you can never have. And I feel like I'm a bottomless sack. Yes, nothing he can say or do will fill the deep, hurtful feeling that you're living through. And that, you know, I usually don't psychologize, but I do think, Sophia, that the reason, no matter how nice he is, or even if in a magical world you could get together and marry this guy and he would love you, it still wouldn't fix that feeling of the loss that you had as a baby, for which there is no replacement. There's no replacement. I mean, we're resilient, beautiful souls, and we carry on and we learn to love and be loved. And in your role as a nun, I imagine you give love and support to so many people. You're a friend to all, a mother to all, a sister to all, and that's so beautiful. And so you have love in your life, but nothing can replace what you lost when you were a baby. So I had a similar thing. My mom left when I was little. She eventually came back. She would come and go a little bit. And, you know, we can't remember what that was like, but it was just like this, you know? It was just like this. I know you know babies. I've had babies, and they are just inconsolable when they think that you've gone. So a mother who is mentally healthy and who is not in some sort of traumatic situation or with postpartum depression is very vigilant to making sure the baby never fears about that. It's hard to avoid, though. And I could tell you stories about times my kids got scared thinking I wasn't going to come back. It was a mistake, and I did come back, but they thought so. And the crying and the redness and the very sad, very moving for me. And I've had some deep conversations with the kids then, when those incidents happened, and now again to just say, you know, you've got me, and you can be you in front of me, and whatever the problem is, I've got your back, I love you, I'm with you, I believe in you, and there's nothing you can do that will change that. And of course, as young people who basically got their needs met, they're like, yeah, Mom, okay, shut up. But you and I know, Sophia, how precious it is to have your mother feel that way about you. So we didn't get it, but we're giving it to others. So then you said you're having insomnia and anxiety and sometimes cry like a child. That sounds like grief. It sounds like grief. This situation is so difficult and you didn't expect it because you're a nun. And I'm just still going to guess. This is displaced grief. Your mom died just 5 months ago. A lot is coming up and it's displacing onto this guy because it's kind of hard to face about your mom because A, she's gone, and B, she hurt you. She used to hit you. So it's hard to feel pure, gentle grief and let it pass through you. But I know you can do that. And I believe you have support to do that in the situation that you're in. And you certainly have my support. And I hope that you will stay connected to our community where we can all support you and love you through this as the grief just washes through you about what happened in the past and what you've lost. And then all the good things that you will be doing in your life going forward. So you can do this. If Sophia's story speaks to you, I've got a video lined up for you next about the heartache of stepping out away from the idealization of the one you love and then facing the loss of them honestly. And I've got that video right here, and I will see you very soon.